So what is the future of income inequality in the United States? This is a big issue in the headlines right now. But if we want to make any guesses at the future of inequality, we have to look at the history and sort of put our guesses in the context. Now, if you have ever been to school in the United States, I'm sure at some point in your history class, you learned about the robber barons, the railroad tycoons, the Rockefellers, Carnegies, Vanderbilts, all of those very wealthy families in the beginning of the 20th century that controlled a great proportion of wealth. And we often look back at that period of history as sort of a cautionary tale about how bad inequality of income can be for our society. At that point in history, this top 1% of the U.S. population controlled somewhere between 15 and 18% of the annual income. In the present day, the top 1% of our population controls almost 25% of the nation's income. So we've actually seen inequality rise in the present day versus the time that we all sort of assume is the most cautionary example in our history. Now, for contrast, let's look at the lower part of the U.S. income spectrum. This will give us a better grasp of the big picture. There are about 47 million people in the United States who are considered below the poverty line. Now, that's defined by their income. The threshold is a little bit more than $11,000 per year for a family of 4. And let's put that in some more human terms. What this means for us is that about 15% of the U.S. population is living off of less than $200 a week. And this group of the population seems set to grow in numbers and to also grow in terms of their poverty, meaning that we could very well have more and more people in our country with less and less of a percentage of the pie. This wasn't always the case. In fact, from the 1950s to about the 1970s, the entire population across the board saw some extraordinary gains in income, from the top 1% even to the bottom 10. But then, somewhere during the 1970s, in a trend that continues to the present day, these parts of our income spectrum started to diverge, and we had a situation where there were more and more people with less and less. So what are the effects of this trend? Some sources, such as the Wall Street Journal, will claim that the worries about income inequality are somewhat exaggerated and a little bit spectacularized. On the other end, there are experts, some of them are economists and many of them are not, who warn that this sort of inequality past a certain threshold can lead to widespread destabilization, perhaps even a gain in domestic terrorism. Now, to guess at the truth between those two claims, we'd have to isolate the causes of economic inequality. And those causes are very controversial at this point in time, partially because it's a very complex problem and partially because it's very much a politically hot issue. We have all sorts of politicians, pundits, voters, and economists who will fight back and forth over the specifics of what causes income inequality, what the effects of income inequality are, and how much a given society should have of each. But we do know that income inequality has been linked with education. And we have had numerous experts trace the decline in our college graduation rates in this country with the acceleration of income inequality. It's not a pretty picture. It may not be as bad as some people like to paint it, but it is certainly a trend that is set to continue for the short to midterm.
For more on this and thousands of other topics, visit HowStuffWorks.com. And don't forget to check out our other podcasts, free, on iTunes.